Commander Vextera's 6 eyes tracked the holographic display with practiced precision. The Zephyrian reconnaissance vessel Quantum Echo hung in the shadow of a dead asteroid, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to all known detection methods. Before them, a human cargo ship drifted lazily through the void, its hull scarred by micrometeorite impacts and radiation burns. "Primitive," murmured Science Officer Keltmar, his crystalline fingers dancing across the sensor array. "Look at that hull composition. Iron-nickel alloy with ceramic plating. They're still using chemical propulsion for maneuvering thrusters." Vextera's mandibles clicked in amusement. 3 months ago, the Galactic Council had declared humanity a class. 7 emerging species, barely worth monitoring. Yet here they were, expanding into contested territory with ships that looked like they'd been assembled in a scrapyard. The audacity was almost admirable. "Initiate deep scan," Vextera commanded. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know what they're carrying, where they've been, and what laughable excuse for defensive systems they're running." The Quantum Echo scanning array hummed to life, its quantum entanglement sensors probing the human vessel with invisible fingers of energy. This was Zephyrian technology at its finest, capable of reading molecular structures through any known shielding, of mapping neural patterns through reinforced bulkheads, of extracting data from encrypted cores without triggering a single alarm. "Sir," Keltmar's voice carried a note of confusion. "The scan is unusual." "Define unusual." "The ship's hull is reading as both solid and permeable simultaneously. My sensors detect standard human electronics, but also quantum fluctuations that shouldn't exist in their technology level. It's like they're using principles we haven't discovered yet." Vextera's primary eyes narrowed. "Impossible. They barely have faster-than-light travel. Check your instruments." "Systems are functioning normally, Commander. But look at this." Keltmar manipulated the display, showing cross-sections of the human vessel. The cargo bay appears to contain approximately 300 tons of processed minerals. Standard mining operation. But the quantum signature suggests the cargo is simultaneously present and absent. Sensor ghost. Increased resolution. The scanning array intensified its probe, quantum particles streaming toward the human ship in invisible waves. The Quantum Echo shuddered almost imperceptibly as power flowed to the sensor systems. "Commander," called Engineer Trixon AL from her station, "we're experiencing minor power fluctuations. The quantum processors are running hotter than normal. Compensate. I want the scan completed." On the display, the human ship continued its lazy drift, oblivious to the intense scrutiny. Its communications array was silent, its crew presumably asleep or occupied with mundane tasks. The vessel's name, painted in faded white letters, read persistence. "Sir, I'm detecting anomalous readings from the computer core," Keltmar reported. "It's responsive. The quantum scan is being reflected back at us, but amplified." Vextera's tail lashed with irritation. "Reflected? That's impossible. Our scanning technology operates on quantum entanglement principles. There's no known method of reflection. Nevertheless, the readings are becoming stronger. The human ship appears to be learning from our scan." The bridge lights flickered. Engineer Trixon AL's claws clattered against her console as she fought to maintain power stability. "Commander, the quantum processors are entering cascade overload. Whatever that human ship is doing, it's feeding information back into our systems. Discontinue the scan." "I'm trying, sir." "The array won't respond to shutdown commands." Vextera felt the first stirrings of genuine concern. In 3 centuries of military service, she'd never encountered a situation where Zephyrian technology simply refused to obey. The Quantum Echo was equipped with enough processing power to simulate entire star systems, protected by quantum encryption that would take civilizations millennia to crack. "Sir," Keltmar's voice was strained now, "the human ship's cargo bay is expanding. Not physically, but quantum-wise. It's creating space that doesn't exist." On the display, the persistence looked exactly the same. A battered human cargo vessel, unremarkable in every way except for the impossible readings flooding the Zephyrian sensors. "Commander," Engineer Trixon L's warning came too late. The quantum echo's main display exploded in a cascade of impossible colors as the human ship's quantum signature overwhelmed their sensors. Warning klaxons screamed throughout the bridge as system after system began reporting critical failures. Emergency shut down. Vexthera commanded, but her crew was already moving, their training taking over as their technology betrayed them. The human ship Persistence continued its lazy drift through space, its hull unchanged, its crew unaware that they'd just accomplished something that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. In the cargo bay of the Persistence, Captain Sarah Chun stretched and checked her coffee cup. The mining run to Kepler 442b had been routine, profitable, even. She had no idea that her ship's experimental quantum classical hybrid computer core, a prototype that operated on principles the Terran scientists themselves didn't fully understand, had just turned the galaxy's most advanced surveillance technology against itself. All she knew was that they were heading home, and the stars had never looked more beautiful. The emergency lighting bathed the Quantum Echo's bridge in crimson as Commander Vexthera watched her crew scramble to contain the cascade failure. 3 of her 6 eyes focused on the tactical display, while the others tracked the frantic activity around her. "Status report," she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Quantum processors are in thermal runaway," Engineer Tritonale reported, her crystalline skin flushed with heat radiation. "The cascade is spreading through the neural networks. We're losing secondary systems." Science Officer Keltmar's fingers flew across his console, streams of data flowing past his 4 eyes faster than most beings could process. "Commander, the human ship signature is still growing. It's not just reflecting our scan, it's multiplying it. Every quantum pulse we send is returning as 1,000. Vexthera's mandibles clicked in frustration. The quantum echo represented the pinnacle of Zephyrian technology, equipped with systems that could penetrate any known defense. Yet a single human cargo ship had somehow turned their greatest asset into a weapon against them. "Sir," Communications Officer Yeflos called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." "Impossible. They can't have detected us." "Nevertheless, Commander, they're hailing us on standard frequencies." The main display flickered, fighting through the cascade interference to show the interior of the human ship's bridge. A female human with graying hair and tired eyes appeared on screen, holding a steaming mug of what appeared to be a stimulant beverage. "This is Captain Sarachin of the cargo vessel Persistence," the human said, her voice carrying the casual authority of someone accustomed to command. "I'm detecting some pretty significant quantum disturbances in your vicinity. Everything okay over there?" Vexthera stared at the screen, her tactical mind racing. The human's casual tone, the way she held her beverage as if this were a routine conversation. It was either the most sophisticated act of deception she'd ever witnessed, or the human genuinely didn't understand what was happening. "How did you detect us?" Vexthera asked, abandoning any pretense of stealth. Captain Chen took a sip of her drink and shrugged. "Your quantum signature is lighting up every sensor we've got. Whatever you're doing over there, it's creating interference patterns I've never seen before. Mind if I ask what kind of scanning array you're running?" "Our scanning array is..." Vexthera paused, watching Engineer Tritonale frantically work to prevent a complete core breach. "Currently malfunctioning. Quantum resonance cascade?" Chen asked, as if discussing the weather. "Yeah, that'll happen if you try to scan something with quantum classical hybrid processing. The classical elements create feedback loops that amplify the quantum effects exponentially." Keltmar's had snapped up from his console. "Commander!" That's exactly what's happening. But how could she know that? Chen noticed the science officer's attention. "Oh, we ran into the same problem during our early tests. Nearly took out half of Luna Station before we figured out how to stabilize the hybrid matrix. You folks using pure quantum processors. Our technology is classified," Vexthera replied stiffly, even as her ship continued to shake from the cascade failure. "Right? Sorry. Professional courtesy and all that." Chen paused, studying something off-screen. "Look, I don't know what kind of scan you were running, but if you don't shut it down soon, you're going to lose your quantum coherence entirely. Your ship's core will collapse into a singularity." The blood drained from Vexthera's face. "You can read our ship's configuration?" Your quantum signature is basically screaming your specs across half the system. 3-stage quantum processing core, entangled particle communications, probability wave navigation systems. Pretty impressive stuff, actually. We're still working on entangled communications ourselves. Engineer Trixan AL looked up from her console, her expression desperate. Commander, the human is correct. We have perhaps 5 minutes before core collapse. Can you shut down the scanning array manually? The quantum cascade has locked the systems in a feedback loop. Every time I try to disconnect, the amplified signals from the human ship reinitialize the process. Chen's voice came through the speakers again. If you want, I can try to help. Our hybrid core might be able to create a counter-resonance that breaks the feedback loop. You would help us? Vextra asked, suspicion clear in her voice. Professional courtesy, Chen replied with a smile. Besides, if your ship goes critical, the explosion might damage our hull. We got a deadline to meet. The quantum echo shuddered more violently as another wave of feedback tore through its systems. Vextra felt the deck plates vibrate beneath her feet as the ship's structural integrity began to fail. Do it, she commanded. All right, stand by, Chen said, disappearing from the screen for a moment. Johnson, bring the hybrid core online. We're going to try to create a quantum classical interference pattern. On the bridge of the Persistence, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. Unlike the panicked atmosphere aboard the Zephyrian vessel, they worked with calm precision, their movements suggesting they dealt with similar situations before. Core Online Captain, reported a voice from off-screen. Quantum elements stable, classical processors integrated. Beginning counter-resonance in 3, 2, 1, the effect was immediate. The cascade of impossible colors on the quantum echo's display suddenly stabilized, the chaotic energy patterns resolving into orderly waves. The ship's shuddering ceased, and the emergency klaxons fell silent. That should do it, Chen said, reappearing on screen. Your quantum coherence is stabilizing. Just remember, next time you want to scan something with hybrid processing, use a stepped approach. Start with classical sensors, then gradually introduce quantum elements. Vextra stared at the human captain, her mind reeling. You've just saved our ship. Like I said, professional courtesy. Besides, Chen grinned, we humans have a saying, what goes around comes around. Maybe someday you'll return the favor. The quantum echo drifted in space, its systems slowly recovering from the cascade failure. Commander Vextra stood at the center of her bridge, watching the human cargo ship Persistence continue its lazy trajectory through the asteroid field. The casual competence with which Captain Chun had resolved their crisis left her feeling fundamentally unsettled. Full damage report, she commanded. Engineer Trixan crystalline fingers worked across her console, her skin still flushed from the heat of the overloaded systems. Quantum processors are stable but running at 60% efficiency. The cascade burned out several neural pathway clusters. We'll need full maintenance at a starbase to restore complete functionality. And our scanning array? Offline. The resonance feedback fused half the quantum entanglement matrices. We're essentially blind beyond standard electromagnetic sensors. Vextra's tail lashed with frustration. The quantum echo was supposed to be the most advanced reconnaissance vessel in the Zephyrian fleet, and a single human cargo ship had reduced it to the technological equivalent of a museum piece. Sir, Science Officer Keltmar called out, I'm still detecting anomalous readings from the human vessel. Even with our quantum sensors offline, there's something about their ship that doesn't match standard human technology profiles. Explain. The quantum classical hybrid core Captain Chen mentioned. It's not just unusual, it's theoretically impossible. Classical and quantum processing should create destructive interference patterns. The fact that they've made it work suggests they've discovered principles we don't understand. Vextra approached Keltmar Station, her 6 eyes focusing on the limited data their remaining sensors could gather. What else can you tell me about their ship? The hull composition is exactly what I reported initially, primitive by our standards. But there are microscopic structures embedded in the metal that I can't identify. They appear to be artificial, but they're operating on quantum scales while remaining macroscopically stable. Quantum engineering? Vextera's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. That's restricted to Class 1 civilizations. Yet the humans are supposed to be Class 7. Commander, I think we may have significantly underestimated them. On the main display, the Persistence had slowed its drift and was now maintaining a stable position relative to the Zephyrian vessel. Captain Chen's face appeared on screen again, her expression curious rather than concerned. "How are your systems holding up?" she asked. "Stable. Thanks to your intervention," Vextera replied carefully. "Captain Chen, your ship's technology is unexpected." Chen laughed, a sound that seemed genuinely amused rather than mocking. "I suppose it would be, from your perspective. We tend to approach problems differently than most species." "How so?" "Well, take your scanning array. It's incredibly sophisticated. Pure quantum processing with entangled particle networks. Theoretically perfect for information gathering. But it's also rigid. When it encounters something unexpected, it can't adapt. And your hybrid core can? That's the idea. The classical elements provide stability and adaptability, while the quantum components handle the heavy computational lifting. It's messier than pure quantum processing, but it's also more flexible. Keltmar leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overriding protocol. "Captain, how did you overcome the interference patterns? Classical and quantum processing should be incompatible." Chen's expression grew more serious. "That's classified, but I will say this. We didn't overcome the interference. We learned to work with it. Sometimes the best solution isn't to fight the problem, but to find a way to make it part of the solution." "That's paradoxical," Vextera observed. "Is it? Your species has been spacefaring for, 10,000 years? You've built incredible technologies, conquered multiple star systems, achieved things we're still dreaming about. But you've also created systems that are so perfect they can't handle imperfection." The human captain took another sip of her beverage, seemingly oblivious to the philosophical implications of her words. "We humans, we're newer to all this. We make mistakes, our technology fails, our ships break down. So we learn to build things that can fail safely, that can adapt when they encounter the unexpected. Your ship survived our scan because it was designed to fail?" Vextera asked, trying to understand. "Not to fail, exactly, but to handle failure gracefully. When your quantum probe hit our hybrid core, instead of trying to process it perfectly, our system just went with it. It absorbed the energy, learned from it, and reflected it back in a way that wouldn't damage either of our ships." Engineer Trixnell looked up from her console, her eyes wide. "Commander, she's describing adaptive quantum architecture. The theoretical models suggest it's possible, but the computation requirements would be astronomical. Not if you don't try to compute everything," Chen said, apparently having overheard. "Sometimes the best answer is to let the system find its own solution. That's chaos theory." Keltmar breathed. "That's human engineering," Chen corrected with a smile. "Look, I should probably get going. We got a delivery schedule to keep, and this little Dieter has already put us behind. But it's been educational." "Captain," Vextera said quickly, "your hybrid core technology, would your people be interested in sharing it?" Chen's expression grew guarded. "That would be a decision for people way above my pay grade. But I'll tell you what, if you ever find yourselves in human space, look us up. We're always interested in meeting new neighbors." The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in silence. On the display, the Persistence began moving again, its chemical thrusters firing in brief bursts as it adjusted course toward the edge of the system. "Commander," Yeflo said quietly, "what do we report to command?" Vextera considered the question. How could she explain that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their acceptance of imperfection? That their willingness to work with failure rather than eliminate it had created capabilities that surpassed supposedly superior civilizations? "We report that humanity requires reclassification," she said finally, "and that we may have underestimated the importance of learning to fail gracefully." Admiral Ketvaldre's scaled hide rippled with barely contained fury as she read Commander Vextera's preliminary report. The massive Zephyrian command ship Hegemony's Pride hung in the shadow of Kepler Station, its kilometer-long hull bristling with weapons and sensors that could reduce entire planets to ash. "You're telling me," the Admiral hissed, her voice carrying the authority of 1,000 conquered worlds, "that a single human cargo ship disabled our most advanced reconnaissance vessel?" "Not disabled, Admiral." Vextera replied to the subspace communication link. "Overwhelmed. There's a significant difference." "Explain that difference to the Council of Hierarchs when they demand to know why our intelligence-gathering operations have been compromised." Admiral Kethvaldra's 6 eyes fixed on a holographic display, showing the quantum echo's damaged systems. "How long for repairs?" "Full restoration requires 4 weeks at a dedicated facility." "However, Admiral, I believe we're focusing on the wrong issue." "The wrong issue?" The Admiral's tail lashed dangerously. "Commander, your ship was neutralized by a species we classified as barely worth monitoring." "That classification was incorrect," Vextera stated firmly. "The human vessel demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed our current understanding. Their quantum classical hybrid processing isn't just advanced, it's revolutionary." Admiral Kethvaldra leaned back in her command chair, her expression skeptical. "Revolutionary how?" "Our technology seeks perfection, Admiral. Every system is optimized for maximum efficiency, protected by layers of redundancy and fail-safes. But when those systems encounter something truly unexpected, they can't adapt. They can only follow their programming. And the humans, they build controlled chaos into their technology. Systems that can fail safely, that can learn from unexpected inputs, that can find solutions we never programmed. It's not more advanced. It's fundamentally different." The Admiral's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Show me the tactical analysis." Vextera transmitted the data, and the holographic display shifted to show a detailed breakdown of the encounter. Energy patterns, quantum signatures, and system responses flowed across the screen in complex three-dimensional models. "The human ship's response to our scan was instantaneous," Vextera continued. "No known processing system could have analyzed our quantum probe, formulated a response, and executed a countermeasure that quickly. But their hybrid core didn't need to analyze it. It simply absorbed the energy and used it." "Like a quantum sponge," the Admiral murmured. "More than that, it learned from our scan, adapted to it, and then used that knowledge to help us when our systems failed. Admiral, they turned our own technology into a tool for cooperation." Admiral Kethvaldra studied the data for several minutes, her tactical mind working through the implications. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 47 star systems through superior technology and strategic thinking. The idea that a newly spacefaring species could possess capabilities they lacked was troubling. "What do you recommend, Commander?" "Immediate reclassification to Class 3 minimum, possibly Class 2. We need to understand their hybrid processing technology before we encounter them again." "You believe there will be further encounters?" "Admiral, they're expanding into contested space with ships that can neutralize our best technology without even trying. Whether we seek them out or not, we'll encounter them again." The Admiral's expression grew grim. "And if they prove hostile, then we'll face an enemy that can turn our own weapons against us." "But Admiral, Captain Chen's behavior suggests they're not naturally aggressive. They helped us when they could have simply watched us die. Or they wanted to study our technology as much as we wanted to study theirs." Vextera hadn't considered that possibility. Perhaps, but their assistance was genuine. They could have learned everything they needed from our cascade failure without intervening. Admiral Kethvaldra made a decision. "I'm detaching the Hegemony's Pride from the Kepler Station Patrol. We're going to intercept this human ship before it reaches its destination." "Admiral, if you're planning to engage..." "I'm planning to talk, Commander. If humanity possesses technology that could revolutionize galactic civilization, then the Zephyrian Empire needs to understand it. And if they prove hostile..." The Admiral's weapon systems came online with a subtle hum. "Then we'll test their adaptive capabilities against overwhelming firepower." 3 hours later, the Hegemony's Pride dropped out of hyperspace directly in the path of persistence. The massive dreadnought sensors immediately locked onto the human cargo ship, but this time, They used only passive electromagnetic scanning. Human vessel. This is Admiral Kethvaldra of the Zephyrian Empire. Request permission to come aboard for diplomatic discussions. The response came quickly. Captain Chen's voice carrying across the void with the same casual confidence she'd shown before. Admiral, this is Captain Chun. Permission granted, but I should warn you, we're not exactly set up for formal diplomatic protocols. Will coffee and sandwiches work for you? Admiral Kethvaldra's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Coffee and sandwiches will be adequate, Captain. As the Admiral's shuttle approached Persistence, she studied the human ship with new eyes. The scarred hull, the mix of technologies, the adaptive systems that could turn their greatest weapons into tools of cooperation. Perhaps there was more to learn from humanity than just their hybrid processing. Perhaps there was an entirely different way to approach the challenges of galactic civilization. Admiral, her aide whispered, are you certain about this approach? No, Admiral Kethvaldra replied, watching the docking bay doors of the human ship open to receive them. But certainty is a luxury we may no longer be able to afford. The Persistence's mess hall was nothing like the formal conference rooms Admiral Kethvaldra was accustomed to. Mismatched chairs surrounded a simple metal table, and the air carried a mingled sense of recycled atmosphere and something the humans call coffee. Captain Chen sat across from her, a steaming mug in her hands, looking more like a cargo hauler than a representative of a species that had just redefined galactic technology. I have to admit, Chen said, this is my first time hosting an admiral from a galactic empire. Usually we just deal with customs officials and port authorities. Your species has had contact with other galactic powers? Admiral Kethvaldra asked, her 6 eyes focusing intently on the human captain. Oh, sure. Trade mostly. The Altarians buy our manufactured goods. The Centauri collective purchases our agricultural products. Nothing too exciting. Chun took a sip of her coffee, though I guess our little encounter earlier was more exciting than usual. The Admiral's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Captain, my science teams have analyzed the encounter between your ship and the quantum echo. Your hybrid processing technology represents a significant advancement in computational theory. Does it? Chun shrugged. It's just what works for us. We tried pure quantum processing like everyone else, but our systems kept failing. So we started mixing in classical elements to stabilize things. The computational requirements alone should make such a system impossible. That's what everyone said. But sometimes impossible just means no one's tried the right approach yet. Chen leaned forward slightly. Admiral, can I ask you something? Why did you really come here? Admiral Kethvaldra studied the human captain. There was an intelligence in those eyes that went beyond casual competence. Because your technology could change everything. The ability to create adaptive systems that can handle unexpected inputs, that can learn and evolve in real time. That's what every civilization has been trying to achieve for millennia. And you want to know how we did it. I want to know if you're willing to share it. Chen was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. Admiral, there's something you need to understand about humans. We didn't set out to revolutionize galactic technology. We were just trying to solve problems. What kind of problems? The kind that come from being new to all this. Equipment failures, software bugs, systems that worked perfect in a lab but fell apart in space. We couldn't afford to replace everything every time it broke, so we learned to fix it. And when we couldn't fix it, we learned to work around it. You're describing necessity-driven innovation. I'm describing survival. Admiral, do you know what our first interstellar ship was? A converted asteroid mining platform with a jury-rigged faster-than-light drive. It barely held together long enough to reach Alpha Centauri. But it worked because we didn't try to make it perfect. We just tried to make it functional. Admiral Kethvaldra's tail curled with interest. And this philosophy extends to your hybrid processing. It's not a philosophy, Chen replied. It's just how we think. When classical and quantum processing interfered with each other, we didn't try to eliminate the interference. We figured out how to use it. The chaos became part of the solution. Controlled chaos. Exactly. And that's what scares other species about us, isn't it? We're not trying to achieve perfection. We're trying to achieve functionality. even if it means accepting imperfection as part of the design. The Admiral considered this. Your ship's response to our quantum scan, that wasn't program behavior? Hell no. We had no idea what you were doing to us. But our hybrid core felt the energy patterns, recognized them as potentially useful, and just went with it, like a river finding its way around a rock. And the counter-resonance that saved the quantum echo? Same thing. Our system recognized that your ship was in distress and figured out how to help. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was just what the system did. Admiral Keth Valdra felt a chill run down her spine. Captain, you're describing artificial intelligence that operates on instinct rather than logic. I'm describing systems that can adapt without being told how to adapt, whether that's artificial intelligence or something else entirely. Chin shrugged. I'm a cargo hauler, not a philosopher. But you understand the implications. I understand that we built something that works for us, whether it works for other species. Chin paused, meeting the Admiral's gaze directly. That's a question for people smarter than me. The Admiral's communication device chimed softly. She glanced at it, then back at Chun. Captain, I'm receiving reports of 3 more encounters between human vessels and various galactic powers. In each case, the human ships demonstrated similar adaptive capabilities. And in each case, they used those capabilities to help rather than harm. Even when faced with hostile intentions, the human ships found ways to de-escalate rather than destroy. Chin nodded slowly. That sounds about right. We're generally not looking for fights. Why not? With capabilities like yours, you could dominate any conflict. To what end? Admiral, we're cargo haulers, miners, colonists. We're just trying to make a living, and maybe see what's out there among the stars. Starting wars doesn't help with either of those goals. Admiral Keth Valdra stood, her massive form towering over the human captain. Captain Chun, I believe your species may be the most dangerous thing the galaxy has ever encountered. Chun raised an eyebrow. Because of our technology? Because of your perspective. You've achieved technological superiority without the drive to dominate. You've created systems that can adapt to anything, and you use them to help rather than conquer. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in what might have been respect. That's not just dangerous. It's revolutionary. So what happens now? Now, Captain, the galaxy learns that there's a species out there that builds imperfect ships perfectly suited to an imperfect universe. And that, Admiral Keth Valdra said as she headed for the door, is going to change everything. As the Admiral's shuttle departed, Captain Chin stood at the observation port, watching the massive Zephyrian dreadnought disappear into hyperspace. She took a final sip of her coffee and smiled. Johnson, she called her engineer, set course for Earth. I think the Admiralty is going to want to hear about this. Behind her, the Persistence's hybrid core hummed quietly, its quantum classical processors already adapting to the new information they'd gathered from their encounter with the Zephyrians. The ship didn't know it was part of a revolution. It was just doing what it was built to do. And sometimes that was enough to change the galaxy.